So you want to study for the APM PFQ, the Project Fundamentals qualification. This short range of videos will take you through step by step each of the topics within the PFQ exam and try and explain them in some detail and how that relates to running real projects in the real world. It should be noted that this is not a definitive guide and you shouldn't expect to be able to pass the exam just by watching these videos, but hopefully they should give you a really good grounding, explain some of the slightly more challenging areas in a way that is nice and clear and concise. And hopefully by the end of this video series you should be able to go back to your workplace and be able to run projects in the real world without too much difficulty. So let's get started with the principles of project management. So our very first question is, what do we mean when we talk about projects? What is a project? You've probably got some pretty good ideas, but I hear the word project used in the real world for all sorts of things that actually are not projects. So it's quite important that we can define what we mean when we talk about projects in the context of APM's PFQ exam. You'll note that some of these screens have a sticker in the top right hand corner that says, remember, these are important facts and important bits that you need to remember if you are going to go into that exam. But again, this is not a complete exam pass guide at all. So first of all, when we talk about what is a project is something that addresses a problem or opportunity that has been identified. So something in the workplace, something that's not working right, or there's an opportunity to do something better, such as produce a new product or upgrade a current process. This could be a project. But a project also must implement some kind of change. It must change our behavior or our process or something about the environment with which we are in. If it doesn't change anything, then why are you doing it? Next, our project must have described benefits. So why are we doing this? There must be a positive change result that we're after. We call those benefits, and you'll note that's highlighted in yellow here. It is a key concept. Everything you do in project management is about delivering benefits. That's a positive outcome for the key stakeholder. Normally your organization, but it could be for an external organization, a client. Every project also has a planned set of deliverables, the things you are going to deliver, which could be a building, it could be a component, it could be a plan, it could be a new process. It could be anything you can think of, but we must have something that we're going to hand over, we're going to deliver to the end users. And of course, project management is about planning how we're going to do that. Our next thing to define a project is that it is transient. What we mean by that word is it has a defined beginning and a defined end point. There is a start of the project and there is the end of a project. It doesn't continue indefinitely. It is not a pure continual improvement type of cycle. And our last thing to help us define that it is a project is we have a specific budget. So money set aside only for the purposes of this change that we're trying to do to solve this problem or take advantage of this opportunity in order to achieve those benefits. So a defined start and end time, it's going to change something, we're going to deliver something from it, and we've set aside a certain amount of money for that. There's often a question that comes up in the exam specifically on this. That's why we've got our remember sticker here. So you can pause the video now if you want and jot down a few notes on what you can think of from the real world, your experiences yourself, maybe from your workplace, of types of project. Once you've done that, unpause, carry on, and I'll take you through a list of just some examples that I've come up with here. So first of all, building a conservatory. So this might be something you do at home yourself, and you can project manage the building of that. It might be that you're moving premises, either your own home or your office premises or anything like that will be included in a project. Upgrading IT infrastructure. Now that could be on all sorts of scales. That could be At home, it could be in a multi-site, huge organization upgrading your IT infrastructure. It could just be printers. It could mean your whole network. It could be your data storage services. It could be a combination of all of those. Organising a wedding or another kind of event also can be seen as a project. Now, you do encounter people who say that they are an event manager. Event management really is a subset of project management. If you're a project manager, you can run events because we can apply all of our principles and everything to that. An event manager, not necessarily the other way around, can't necessarily run a project because they've got a specialization within project management. We might be wanting to implement a new sales process or recruitment process or any other process within our organization. So we're looking at what we do and we're saying there's a way that we can do that better. We're going to change those processes. So all 5 of those are just some examples of types of project we could be looking at. So if we know what a project is, we need to look at what a project is not. This helps us define that boundary between the two. So anything that is not specifically part of a project, we classify as business as usual. And that's quite often abbreviated to BAU, business as usual. And we can look at some activities that may fall into this category of business as usual that are not project oriented. So for example, retail sales activity, working on a checkout or running a store, you are, as a daily part of the business, you are bringing goods in, you are stacking shelves, they are going through the counters to customers. You're not doing anything different, you're not implementing any changes to the way that you do stuff. This is your normal everyday activity. And the same goes for manufacturing. Most manufacturing processes, we take raw resources in one end and the same product comes out the same end at the other end, day after day after day. So we've got reliable, consistent products coming off of that production line. Property maintenance is a slightly interesting one. Because a lot of property maintenance is doing the same thing again and again. It's business as usual. Things like cleaning, mowing the lawn, etc. all would come under property maintenance. If you're talking about property maintenance as part of a job and you're going in and you're upgrading systems or you're changing systems, you're doing landscaping, then some aspects of property maintenance you could actually consider a project. But then that's really property changing rather than maintenance. Maintenance, another lick of paint, etc. absolutely could be just business as usual activities. But you notice I've put this one in here because it's not always clear cut where that falls. How we know whether that would be a project or not would be how we go about organising undertaking that activity. A case study you could take a look at is something like the Forth Bridge that continually needs painting to maintain it. So it is a maintenance, business as usual, day in, day out. But I can almost guarantee that when they finish that, they start again and run it like a project. So they're going to look at the budget that they need, the resources that they need. Even if it's very similar to what they've done before, they will have a start and an end date to that routine. The next one I've got on here is writing reports, and I suspect all of you have been involved in that. Writing reports, updating data, producing reports for meetings, etc. All of that is business as usual. The admin bit, generally it's the bit we don't enjoy about our jobs. It's the day in, day out. That all comes under business as usual. And processing financial transactions. So if you happen to work in finance and you're dealing with invoices and things, yes, the invoices might be different, not ones you've had before, but you're not doing anything different. You're still processing those invoices and those, dealing with sales ledger, etc. in the same way that you have done the day before. So just some examples of business as usual. And here is a really handy table to compare the project versus business as usual activities. And this normally does come up in the exam. So note, top right hand corner, there is a remember. This is a really good bit to come back to and revise. So a project seeks to introduce change. We want to change something. Business as usual doesn't want to change. It wants to carry on performing at its same level. A project is limited by time. We use the word transient. It has a start and a stop time. Business as usual is repetitive and continuous every day. Project management has unique bespoke plans. We're planning specifically how to do that change. Business as usual, we're following day-to-day procedures, working practices. A project has a defined scope, and we'll talk about scope in a future video, whereas business as usual just has its procedures. A project has a discrete number of steps that we work through as we go through the project. We call it a life cycle, and we'll cover that in the next video. Business as usual doesn't have a project life cycle, it has a product life cycle. So different stages the product is within that process. Also, a project has a specific authorized business case, and again, that's another thing we'll come back to. So a specific business case that says to us why we should do the thing that we're looking at, and the benefits of doing that. Do they outweigh the costs, and making that business argument. Business as usual activities, we're doing the same thing as we did yesterday, so we don't need to argue that we should be continuing with what we're doing. And finally, at the bottom here, as we mentioned on the previous slides, the project dedicated budget for a project, because we're setting aside money specifically to make a change, whereas in business as usual we're not doing anything different. We're not setting aside money specifically for those things. It's part of our day-to-day operational budget. So having covered that, our next question, now we understand what a project is and what a project isn't, our question becomes, so what do we mean when we say about project management? What are we actually managing here? So project management is the appropriate applications of tools and techniques in order to achieve a predefined outcome. Now remember, we've mentioned about a business case, we've mentioned about having benefits. We're going to define what our target is, what we're aiming for. So we have to have a predefined outcome, and project management is about using tools and techniques to get to that end goal. So that's really important that we understand that that's the purpose of project management. So what we do as project managers, part of the process is just a way to visualize the steps that we take, is we're going to initiate. So we're going to start the whole thing going, what do we want to do? We're going to plan how we're going to do that. And then we're actually going to deliver something at the end of it. All right. So we're going to start, we're going to plan how we're going to do it, and then we're going to do it. It really is that simple. There's a lot of detail in there, of course. And what we're going to actually come out of our project is we are going to have a product, so a thing that we produce, which is going to lead to an outcome, which is going to give us our benefits. So the whole point is to get those benefits. So it's important to understand what these words mean, because they're not always clear cut. And when we come to things like the exam, they can use these words very specifically. So we do need to make sure we understand the way that APM are using these words. So the product is the thing that is produced. So it might be a device that we've created, a plan that we've produced, it might be a process that has been written. So the thing that's been made or written or created. So we've got a new process, for example. The outcome is the actual change that happens as a result of the product. We have a new process. The change is we now follow a new process. By following it, we're doing something differently, so we have a change. That change should lead to benefits. So if we're talking about something like a process, it might be we wanted to make our process more efficient, therefore saving time and money. So we've written a new process. So we now operate in a different way because something's changed. The outcome is we now do it this way, and the benefit is that we've saved time and money. So it's important to understand those three things are separate from each other. But we can look at that in a slightly different way. So on the left here, we start with our project plans, how we're planning to deliver our products, and each project could deliver one or dozens of products. And those products together are going to cause at least one change in the way we do stuff. Remember, part of our definition of a project is we're going to change something. If there's no outcome, if there's no change, then what are we doing? We're wasting our time. We're not actually changing anything. We're just moving bits of paper around. So whatever the outcome is, whatever the change is what we should see reflected in our benefits. So that's where we should see our happy smiley faces, our stakeholders who are actually able to do that. Important to note, this word product, APM often interchangeably use it with the word output, which is really frustrating that they do that. So if you encounter the word output, if you're doing other studies and things around this area, you see the word output, product, output, treat them as the same thing here. We've got plans, we've got a thing we're going to produce, a change that's going to happen, and a benefit we're going to get from that. So we can summarize those 4 items just by looking at this screen here. So the project is what we want to change and why, and how are we going to achieve that. That is what the project is about. The product is the actual thing we've created, so the new or changed process, the item, the schematic, whatever it could be. The outcome is what actually changed. So for example, we now have fewer manufacturing faults, which has led to a 20% reduction in customer returns. That's the change that has happened as a result of our product. And of course, because we've got fewer returns and stuff, the actual benefit is we've increased customer satisfaction and our returns costs have been reduced by £1,000 per month, for example. So hopefully you can see there's a difference there between those items, because it's really important to get that. So that's our headline purpose of running a project, and as a project manager what we are there to do. But it's a lot more challenging to actually do that. So here's another remember screen for you to look at. Our job as project managers is to keep our eye on the prize, which is the benefits we're trying to deliver. It doesn't matter how well we run a project, if it does not deliver the benefits, we've wasted everybody's time and money. So we have to keep an eye on the benefits. But we also need to make sure that we're doing that within a timely manner. We are sticking to the agreed timeframes that we said we would be able to achieve those benefits. We also need to take into account the risks involved of doing this. Now, when we say risks, most people jump straight to health and safety, and yes, that's a very important part of it, but we're talking about project risks here, the things that might throw our project off, things that are going to prevent us from delivering those benefits, for example, on time. So we'll look at risks again in a different video, and we'll look at it in much more detail, but we need to consider those as well. We also need to consider the quality of what we're going to produce. If our project is to produce a gadget that does a particular task, and we get a benefit from having that gadget, if the quality of that gadget isn't where it needs to be, it doesn't work, or it breaks easily, we're going to see a significant impact on the benefit, because it's going to spend more time being repaired or replaced than it is actually doing its job. So we need to keep quality in mind as well. And the last one of these is cost. So a lot of projects, this is the biggest constraint. There's a key word for you. The biggest thing that's going to control how we do a project is how much money we get to spend. So as a project manager, we have to balance all 5 of these things. We must deliver the benefits, but we must do it in time. We must do it while controlling risks. We must deliver to the quality that's required, and we must do it within budget. And this is known as the equilibrium of the project. And you may have heard people talk about the project health or the project pulse, and things like that. Really, that's what they're talking about, is this: where are we with these 5 areas? Are we on time? Are we on budget? Are we delivering a quality product that is actually going to cause the change that we need so we get the benefits? And are we managing those risks? And there's a saying in project management, you take cost, time and quality, and you can pick any two of those, because often we need to sacrifice one for the other. If you want it done fast and you want it done cheap, the chances are the quality will be quite low. If you want it done, if you want it done quickly and you want it done to high quality, the chances are you're going to have to spend a lot more money on it. So this is what we mean by that equilibrium. It's kind of give and take through these things. And the project manager's job is to try and keep all of these in balance, which for some projects can be quite straightforward, for others really, really challenging. Okay, so part of our project manager role, we need to look at a thing called requirements. It's written in yellow, it's a keyword, we will come back to it in another video. So requirements are captured and documented. We need to make sure that has happened. Anything we're going to produce, our products, we need to have a specification for them. It must be this big, it must be compatible with this software, it must be accessible by these people. So we need to make sure we got some specifications that feeds directly into our quality planning. Again, we'll do that in another video. We're going to do some estimating of our costs and the time requirements for this project. We're not going to be able to do that precisely, but we are going to do some pretty good estimating. We'll talk about estimating again in another video. Develop and implement a plan. So we're going to plan how we are going to achieve the outcomes that have been asked for that will give us those benefits, which means the development of a PMP. So that's the Project Management Plan. In APM, it's called the PMP, Project Management Plan. All sorts of other project management methodologies have different words for this. Prince2 has its own project implementation plans, PIPs and things like that. APM, we call it a PMP. And a key role for us as a project manager is we need to lead the delivery team. So the people who are actually going to be doing the writing, the building, the testing within our project, the task doers, we need to run those teams and lead those individuals. So that's where the management side comes in, is looking after those people as well. So on top of those, we have some other things we need to be doing as well. We need to be keeping an eye on all of the risks, make sure that we've got them under control as best we can, and we're ready to react if they become a problem. We need to do issues and anything that crops up we weren't expecting that may need to be addressed. We need to manage those as well. And any changes that are needed, so required changes or requested changes, generally from one of the stakeholders. We need to monitor our progress against the plan. Are we on time? Are we on budget? Are we managing our risks? Are we managing to deliver what we said we would be able to the quality we said we would? We need to communicate with our stakeholders, keep people up to date with what's happening, and that often leads straight on from the monitoring progress. So you monitor all your progress, you gather all your information, and then you're able to communicate and report that to stakeholders. We need to manage any suppliers and any contractors we might be working with on our project. It could be that your entire team is internal as part of your organization. It could be that nearly the entire team is external contractors and suppliers, and you need to manage those. And at the end of the project, we're going to go through a proper process to close the project down. So we're going to have a look at, have we done everything? We're going to review our progress, we're going to review our reporting and everything. What can we learn from the project we've just delivered? What would we do different next time? And that's really quite important that we do that, because that's how we become a better project manager for the next project. The last part of this video, I want to talk about programs, portfolios and projects, because this will come up as part of the APM exam as well if you choose to sit that exam, and it's certainly language that you hear thrown around in the workplace. So we're going to look at these 3 P's, and again there's a remember sticker there, so if you are doing this as part of getting ready to sit the exam, it's important that you know this part. So first of all, we have our projects. We've defined what a project is. It's a standalone piece of work with its own budget, in order to deliver a specific described change in order to deliver benefits to our stakeholders. And they can be all sorts of things we've already looked at. But you may have a series of projects that actually together provide a overall outcome more greater than the sum of the individual projects themselves. And we might link those all together and call those a program. So to give you an example, if we were going to overhaul the IT infrastructure for our organization, we might be looking at our network capability, we might be looking at our desktop machines, we might be looking at our servers, we might be looking at our Wi-Fi connectivity, so and even printers you could add on there as well. So potentially 5 different areas we're all going to improve as part of a major overhaul and a big improvement to our organization. Now, each of those you could handle as a separate project. You could put one person in charge of desktop machines. You could put one person in charge of servers. You could put one person in charge of running network cables and upgrading those. They could be done separately. But you would more than likely have one person overseeing the whole of that, what we would call a program manager, that makes sure that those individual components work together, are compatible with each other. So we don't end up with servers that can't talk to desktops for whatever reason. We're using different protocols, or the network speeds are not going to be able to deliver the service that we need. So we're going to make sure that we're working together. Individual project managers working under a program manager to coordinate those individual efforts. We could take that up a level as well, and we could say that actually we're doing something even bigger than that as part of a even bigger thing, and we could have a portfolio manager who is looking after one or more programs that contains one or more projects, but also could contain individual projects themselves. So projects is generally the level that we're going to be working at, because that's why you're here. Programs, you may find yourself as part of a program running one of those projects within a larger program. Portfolios much bigger, they're very strategic oriented, they're very high level, but you might find yourself that your project is part of something greater. Okay, so just to recap on our projects, we've got our project A here. We're planning how we're going to deliver our project. We're going to produce some products. But there could be alongside that a different project run by a different project manager whose project is also going to deliver some products. They're going to produce some different things. But what we find is a combination of the products from both of those projects together provide a change. So just upgrading the desktop computers is not going to give much benefit at all on its own. But if we're also upgrading the speed of our network, we get a change where we get much more responsive computers for our end users. So different projects providing different products, but those products, when linked together, we can get combined changes that come from those. So we've got 2 different projects here. We've got 3 different products coming out of it, which lead to 2 different changes, outcomes, and therefore we get our happy smiley faces, our benefits at the end. So thank you for staying to the end of this video if you made it there. Hopefully that's been a very useful but very brief introduction into basically what we mean by a project, what the role of the project manager is within that, very basically, and how projects, very loosely, what's their purpose and how they work. In the next video, we're going to look in a bit more detail about how we break that project up into bite-sized chunks to make it more manageable and easier to access, and we're going to be looking at those life cycles. So thank you for staying this long in the video. If you would like to leave a comment below, you're more than welcome to, and a like on the video would be very much appreciated. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next one.